Hajra Sati, and joining me is my wonderful co-host who happens to be Fahim Bangesh. Assalamu alaikum, Fahim. How are you doing today?
Walaikum assalam and a very good morning, Hajra. I'm doing very, very well.
Good sleep. So, Fahim, I was reading a very interesting part on the online and the social media, and that was related to the perfectionism, a syndrome of perfectionism, and how it is related to aggression. So, a lot of times we do feel, especially in our communities and in our societies, that people do have this uncontrolled problem of the aggression or the anger episodes that they feel. So one of the reasons that I came across, it's not the entire reason, which is about that how this perfectionism syndrome is related to that. So what happens is that in order to please their parents as a child, what happens is that kids starting to obey whatever their parents are saying, and in order to do so, they are, they lose their inner self, right? The more sensitive self, and so it's very dangerous to show that aggression at the betrayal of that inner self, and you can't do that on your parent because you're not getting the reward out of that, and that is how you have this tendency that in order to be not just simply yourself, you have to do more, and this leads to perfectionism. And we see in our society that how this trait is often played out. People are really hard on themselves, and if they encounter some sort of failure, they will have
I loved how you used the term syndrome for this, because obviously we do see that happening, and one way that we can get that frustration out, since it's so rampant in the society, one way of getting that frustration out is going on the mountains, going trekking, doing something meaningful, doing something fun. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking in today's program, because today's program is special. Because why is it special? Because today we have a bunch of guests, esteemed guests with us, and they're going to be sharing their experiences of what they did when they went trekking in the northern areas of Pakistan, because we always talk about the northern areas of Pakistan, their pristine beauty, how you can go there, meditate, be with your own self, know your own self, and we're going to have them share their experiences.
And I think it is said philosophically that in order to explore your inner self and their lower consciousness, you need to be high up on the mountains, and that is why you will find this concept of mountain retreats, right? People are doing yoga there, meditation there, like you mentioned, and just to escape the very hustle and bustle of the urban life, right? So with that, without any further ado and without further monopolizing our conversation, we want to introduce our worthy guests, because they came from the Switzerland. They landed in Pakistan, and they went to explore the pristine, very rugged, very raw beauty of our northern areas. Switzerland is also very beautiful, especially the Zurich, but we will explore what are the two different contrasting patterns they have found in Pakistan and Switzerland, and where Switzerland has its own sort of beauty, Pakistan has its own sort of beauty. So we will further explore what are some of the cultural patterns that they were find, which were very outstanding in their inhibition, right? So without any further ado, we are very glad that we have been joined by Mr. Standro Zulian, who happens to be an online journalist at the Blick. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Alaikum assalam.
Okay, that's
nice
wonderful.
To meet you.
Nice to meet you too. We're very glad that we have been also joined by Ms. Doris Kleck. She also happens to be a journalist, and she loves hiking and reading. So welcome to our show, Ms. Doris.
Hello. It's nice to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Pleasure having you.
And we're also glad that we have been joined by Mr. Daniel Peter Langer. He happens to be an editor at the magazine Reportagen. He also happens to cover foreign travel and sciences in his magazine. Hello and welcome to our show.
Assalamu alaikum.
Okay. And lastly, we've also been joined by someone who is organizing all of this trip expedition towards our mountainous areas. He happens to be Mr. Michael. He also happens to be the team leader of the Nature Tourist. Hello and welcome to our show, sir.
Thank you so much. Nice to be here.
It's a pleasure having all of you here. Now, starting off with you, Sandro, you came all the way to Pakistan. First of all, what gave you that drive to come and explore Pakistan? Because obviously we've grown up listening about the beauty of Switzerland, listening about the beauty of the Swiss Alps, that this is like the most beautiful place on earth that you can visit, that you can be at. So what made you come to Pakistan?
Switzerland is also the most expensive place you will ever see.
That's very
So-
true.
She was just telling me that.
Yes, yes. You need to have plenty of bucks in your pocket to survive there. Yeah.
The motivation for me, and I don't want this to come across as offensive or something like that, but I have a motto that I created a couple of months ago. When I am presented with the opportunity to go to a country that I would usually say, oof, I don't know,
Right.
like I have this with South America. When someone says, let's go to Brazil, I would be like, I don't know. So the same thing I had with Pakistan. I was like, "Oof, I don't know." But then the opportunity was created by Mr. Michael over here, and I said, "Oh, I don't know." Well, this is the reason why I need to go. When I come into this thought of I don't know, I immediately say, "Yes, I will do it." And
Lovely.
Pakistan is not really on the list for many Swiss people,
Oh, yes.
and I'm trying to change that.
And I think that's wonderful that how, in order to grow more, to evolve more, you need to push your boundaries. And that is where, after
Get
pushing
out
your
of your
boundaries,
comfort zone,
yes,
yes.
crossing your comfort zone, that is where the real learning starts, and you get to know that how many qualities as an individual you have. So, Ms. Torres, you're fond of hiking, you're fond of traveling, you're also fond of cooking, as you told us. So far, how has been your experience? I mean, traversing to high in the mountains, and it is said about the mountains that if someone has a very good relationship with the mountains, you know, that means that person has a very deep and self-reflective personality, because that tells us that nothingness of the man, right? They're so huge and magnanimous, and what are we? Just tiny individuals on this earth. So far, how was your experience there?
It was really a great experience. So I like the Swiss mountains. I like hiking in the Swiss mountains, but you have always to carry your stuff all the way. That's not the case here. No, it's totally different. It's a different landscape, and we did a 3 days hiking trip in the northern area. We went to the base camp of Wakaposhi, and we hiked up during 2 days, and we were really on the feet of Wakaposhi, of this high mountain, and the glacier is, you're so close to the glacier, it's really, really a nice experience.
And I think that's the closest to the nature that you can get, and can appreciate how beautiful this Mother Earth is. So, yeah, Daniel, talking about your experience, like I said, nature is something that you can help yourself with. You're a writer, you're a journalist. What made you come to Pakistan and explore? Did you want to broaden your horizon? Did you want to explore more what the world is all about? Or did you just want to change your perception as far as Pakistan is concerned?
No, I think the main motive is curiosity.
I see.
I've been in Pakistan in 1977 for the first time.
All right.
Oh, wonderful.
So I was, of course, very much interested in seeing the differences. And there are differences which are obvious and visible, and there are also similarities to the time at the 77. So not so many things have changed in regard of the people. It's more the outer things that have changed. And you know, when you talk about finding self and meditation and all this, that can be a force to drive you to some places. But I think one of the most driving forces is to avoid unpleasant feelings.
True.
That is true.
Keeps the world spinning. True. And to go to a place like Pakistan is like Sandra mentioned, if you don't feel like, well, maybe that's not on top of my list, for many people, because of the image Pakistan has, which we can talk about maybe later. And I think when you have this feeling, well, maybe not, then you should go for it. But then you will find the other side of the medal, of the coin, and that's the truth completes.
Right, right.
Lovely.
That's very interesting, and I think we will explore because we all are journalists sitting here, so we know the power of word, and we know that how much our word count in terms of influencing the public opinion out there, and what can it do in terms of creating perceptions, shattering the perceptions, and remaking the perceptions. But now let's come to you, Mr. Michael. So you arrange a lot of trips, and you go towards the Rakaposhi and the base camp of the K2, and it's a huge, magnanimous mountain out there, and this is also known as the third pole of the world because of the amount of the snow that it contains, right? So far, how has been your experience? I mean, what sort of challenges did you face in organizing this trip? And travel towards the mountain areas has its own set of I would say adrenaline rush, because if you see the riverine areas and the roads, and if you see the river that is snaking through, so I mean, there comes a point where you're like, oh my God, where are we going, right? But it has its own set of beauty, I would say. So far, how has been your experience?
Yeah, my experiences are really great. I had the chance to come already last summer to Pakistan to do the trekking to K2 base camp, which was amazing. And for me, it was important to come first myself to this country to see with my own eyes, and then second trip with the journalist, and next step will be to send Swiss tourists to here. That's our mission, because we want to establish the tourism here, because we think that there is a huge potential for trekking tourism, especially in Gilgit-Baltistan, because like 5 mountains over 8,000 meters, uncountable mountains over 7,000 meters, amazing landscape. And of course, there are some challenges we have to face with regarding roads, flights to the north, which are sometimes being cancelled, for example. But that's our daily business in tourism, not only in Pakistan, in every country in the world. But yeah, luckily we have a great and a very experienced local tourism company here. We're working together, and they know this field very well, and they always have a solution for every problem coming up.
Lovely. Now, Sandra, when we talk about the people of Pakistan, we usually say, whenever we want to project the image of Pakistan, we do say, and it's a fact, that Pakistanis are very hospitable people. Now, being a journalist that you are, I'm sure you have that power of observing nature, power of observing your surroundings. What have you observed so far in your journey into Pakistan, into the north of Pakistan? What have you observed so far, and what really excited you, and were you awestruck by something that you saw or felt or observed?
Well, I think I have to say first that I'm not being paid to say the following, but the Pakistani people really are among the nicest people I have ever met in my entire life. Just a couple of days ago, I was in Gilgit, the bazaar, and my driver, he had to stop because he knew someone on the road. So he got out of the car, and I was just standing there, basically lost, you know. And there was a man next to me selling melons. And he asked me, how are you, where are you from? And I was like, ah, good, good, just a normal interaction. And then he goes like, would you like a Pepsi? And I was like, yeah, sure. So he didn't sell any Pepsi, right? So he went across the street, got me a Pepsi, came back, he go like, there you go. And I was like, how much is that? And he's like, no, it's fine. He gifted me a Pepsi, which is something a Swiss person would never do, ever, in their entire life. And I came back to the driver and I told him, Fazal, he just gave me a Pepsi for free. And he goes like, this is Pakistani people.
Lovely,
so that really happened.
So you're making fond memories here.
That was awe-striking to me, really. The hospitality, the friendliness of the people, without really expecting something in return. Very, very, very impressive.
That's very
lovely. That's amazing, really.
That's interesting. You said you're not paid for that message, but are you paid by Pepsi?
It was a soda, just a soda.
That's an interesting one. So
like I say, journalists have the power of observing.
So Mr. Torres, now let's come to you. And we were exploring this conversation, and he has some interesting anecdote to share about the hospitality of Pakistani people. And so we have a very strong norms of hospitality here. So if you go to someone's house, I mean, without having a cup of tea and in the accompanying snacks that you will get, it's very impossible to get up, right? Because the host will not let you out. This is not something that I observed a lot in the Western countries, because they are mostly working and they're so busy in their lives. And I mean, they have their own sets of ethics and principles. But you know, how do you compare and contrast the two cultures in Pakistan and in Switzerland, and in terms of hospitality?
Yeah, I think you said a lot of things already. So in Switzerland we are busy, we are not this warm as you, and yes, and I've eaten a lot the last days. So lunch and dinner, and you have amazing food, and I
Was
enjoyed
it spicy?
It was okay. So I would say. And I also observed that the Pakistani, they like to take pictures. So it was really interesting for
Oh, we
me,
like
because
making
in
memories.
Switzerland, as a tourist, you would be never asked, can I take a photo of you? But it happens all the time. So I'm also on so many pictures.
So, you know, in Pakistan, we have a very celebratory culture. So, in the villages especially, it happens is that when you go and you're sowing your plants or seed or whatever, so you are singing, and when you are reaping it, you are singing. So, very, very celebratory sort of a culture. We like the music, and we like to sing along. So, Mr. Peter, now, Mr. Daniel, now come to you. So, you are an editor, and as a journalist, we've observed, especially there's a crisis going on in the broadcast houses and the journalism houses, that people are not, the attention span has shrinked a lot, right? And people are usually focused towards the short format of the information that is going on. And I think Twitter platforms like Snapchat or Instagram, which are more pictorial based representation, they're gaining traction among the younger people, and they have this tendency not to read news because why they say it's very depressing, or I mean, believe it or not, harm is inherent in the journalism, and whenever you are reporting over someone's fault, or maybe you know you're trying to have the sensationalist angle at that, and a lot has been written on that, right? So how do you see you know, your profession going on as a journalist? Are we scared we might be losing our jobs because people are no more attracted towards the news industry or news business anymore? So how do you see that?
Well, yes, we are going to lose our jobs if we don't do better.
Yes, that's true.
And the tendency of young people to be only informed by short news bits and pieces, that's an obvious trend. But on the other hand, there is a counter trend. There is a demand for stories that are well researched, that are a bit longer, that are not fast, that are not immediately responding to an event, because I think people would like to understand more of the content, the context, and information that is given to put it in a broader perspective, to understand what the hell is going on.
Right.
And with short clips, you might satisfy certain areas of our brain, which has been tested, that it is like that, but it doesn't help you to understand the world.
That's true.
And if we are able or willing and have the ambition to look a bit deeper and to tell longer stories, and that's important, to tell a story, because we can memorize stories much better than just short bits of information. So if we do that, I think we will survive.
Right.
The beauty of what you said is, I mean, which I really, really loved, that we are going to lose our jobs if we don't do better. And you're right, that storytelling is an art, and it has to be done in a specific way for it to get the retention in the reader's or the listener's mind. You're right, quite right about that. Now, when we talk about journalism, Sandro, we got to learn that you cover issues like natural disasters, or perhaps any untoward incident that has happened, or any negative things which are going on in the society. Now, I will not say a journalist, being a human, we tend to have that empathy towards people. We tend to feel for others, right? And for being successful in society, I must say that we need to be emotionally intelligent, and we need to have that level of empathy. So the issues that you cover seem to be very basically depressing, negative, and they kind of have the tendency to affect one's personality overall. One may tend to get pretty negative in the longer run. What do you do? I mean, is this a way that you get away on vacations and just to relieve yourself of all the negative emotions, drain yourself of all the negative emotions, and just be refreshed and reset yourself as far as emotional side is concerned?
Let's put it this way. I've had a lot of doors slammed in my face in my time as a reporter out in the field. Yes, it is something that you have to deal with, of course. I think, of course, I will also release the tension while going on vacation, while doing something else. But if you do the job I do in a respectable manner, if you go up to a person that does not want to talk to you and ask them politely, and once they say, please go away, then you will go away, and you wouldn't start pestering them, you know. In that way, I can deal with the way and the kind of job I do. But of course, yeah, you do need, I do see a lot of very, very negative things like you know, murders and huge fires and all that, where people have lost their entire existence like this, you know. So that does get to you sometimes. I remember one time I was driving home and I thought about the woman I interviewed, and I started to cry. And I think that was the kind of tension relief that we need. I know colleagues of mine, they would be very hardened and very how do you say?
They suppress their emotions and they're
Yes.
unable to regulate that.
So you
right?
need to
Becomes
regulate
part
them,
of that.
and maybe crying on the way home alone in your car is a way of regulating your emotions, of course, but also coming here, being here for a mere 10 days or 9 even, I believe, or I feel like we arrived some 2 months ago, you know. So it gives you a longer perception of time if you go to a different country, especially a country that is so different from ours. Pakistan.
True,
right.
true.
And I think building upon this journalistic conversation, I would like to have the opinion of Mr. Daniel. So, Mr. Daniel, since 9/11, we've seen that the news that was coming about Pakistan was through the lens of terrorism, right? And after the war on terror is over, we see that prism is somehow expanded, and now we do see that people want to explore the South Asian countries through different prism, right? And you were talking about the perception, and you talked about that how maybe Pakistan was not high on your list of exploring, right? So how has your perception changed after interacting with the Pakistani people? Because obviously after 9/11, there was a very different sort of news that was being covered. And Fahim and I always talk that Pakistan is much more than, you know, the extremism, polarization, and the tensions that are being covered in the news. We have
it has a lot more to offer.
Exactly,
yes.
exactly. And I think as a Pakistani, we do get offended a lot when how Western media present us, right? So when you came here, has your perception changed, or it's not unchanged? What is your perception now?
Well, I've been in many countries before 9/11, Arabic, Islamic countries, and I've been in those countries repeatedly after 9/11. And of course, as you said, our perception in the West has dramatically changed. We know some of the reasons, but this perception that is created by also the media is just a small part of the truth. Yeah? And now we have the problem that many countries are totally different, maybe not totally, but partly different than from what we think they are in the West. And coming here as a tourist or journalist would help to see how it really is. Even that's a high demand to say how it really is. We don't know how it really is. And unfortunately, in this case here in Pakistan, we can't go to all the places we would like to. And there are some regions which are not open for foreigners, right? So there are reasons for that. And that would also be an interesting subject to explore. Why is it like that? And the more we know about all these things, the more we get a complete picture. And that would change the perception of not only Pakistan, but also of a country like Morocco, Syria, Libya.
Did you also make any stories or interview any people for that matter?
On this trip now?
Yes, on this trip.
No, I haven't. We discussed what we would call in general the image of Pakistan and why it has this image.
Right.
And you know about that, and that has something to do with the religion, which many people have a very monolithic view, which is totally wrong, of course. We know there are so many interesting, different branches within Islam, even also in Pakistan, and that makes it diverse and interesting. And it's not what we could call Islamistic. It's not.
That's true.
But we have to know about that. And to know about it, we have to go there and have a look at it.
That's very true.
That's very, very true.
And I think it's really amazing if these sort of stories get more space on or more coverage on our international media, Western media, I would like to say. So now moving on to Mr. Michael, since you are a travel agent and you exploring cultures and particularly marketing your different cultures to your clients. So tell us about Pakistani food. I mean, did you like it? Because a lot of time when I go to the Western countries, the food that I consume, it's not very spicy, right? So they don't consume that much spices. But I think we consume so many spices that people can, identify us. You're South Asian, maybe we smell like spices. That is why they can identify us, right? So how's the food there, and which is your particularly favorite dish?
Well, I really love the food here,
Okay,
and it's
that's
actually not too spicy.
Oh,
But
really?
for myself,
Oh.
and it depends. Yeah, of course,
Okay.
it's different from person to person. But I really love it, and it's so many different foods you get here, starting from breakfast to lunch, dinner. You have a huge variety of different foods, and of course, depending on which region you are in Pakistan. In the south, it will be again very different. I haven't been there in Karachi, for example, but I'm sure there will be so many different foods
It's
down
super
there.
spicy.
Karachi and Lahore, I think you need to go there.
Yeah, okay, we should come back only for the food.
Right.
Yeah, it could be a travel again, a trip again for tasting more food. But yeah, I love all kind of chicken food here.
Okay.
The bread, the fresh chapati bread is so delicious. Yeah, it's really worth to taste all the different
Brilliant.
food.
Also, Doris, you said you have been eating a lot. Could you identify which areas of eating are we talking about here? What have you eaten?
Did you like any recipe? I mean, if you go back to Switzerland, I want to make Pakistani food.
Since you like cooking, that's one of your
Yeah,
interests.
I was thinking about buying books with Pakistani receipts because they are available. They are selling in Switzerland recept books with Pakistani food. So he talked about. I can't remember the names of the food I've eaten, but I love the spinach with the potatoes, for example, and also the bread.
Okay.
And you make so good omelets, and yeah, the chicken and the beef. But I don't remember the name in Pakistani, but it's really good food.
That's okay.
So-
That's okay. Yeah. And,
yeah. No, go on. Go on.
And Sandro, have you ever tried cooking? I mean, even back home. Is it in general? Yes.
No, I never cook at home. I'm kidding. Of course I cook. Yes, I don't cook. I think you almost got me there because I really don't cook very often.
Because they say the people who cook, they can tell what a particular dish is made up of. That's why I particularly asked.
Oh, I see. I do cook at home, not as much as I would like to. I go out way too much because I am lazy. Well, your question was whether I would be able to tell
Yes.
if it was homemade or not. Yes, you could tell everything I've eaten so far, except for the chips at the shop, were homemade, and you can tell that. And I believe you can also taste the love that someone has given into preparing a meal.
Yes. Oh, yes.
That creates a lot of difference,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
To, as opposed to someone who's just doing this, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
And almost everything I've eaten has tasted homemade and made with love.
That's
Great.
That's amazing.
Awesome.
And I believe you've been to Hunza Valley, and within that there's another area called Hopler Glacier. I guess you've been there. So how's been your experience there? Because people of Hunza, they have different sort of ethnicity, and they have different sort of values than the rest of the Pakistan. So they have their own indigenous culture, own local wisdom, and I love Hunza Valley a lot. And if I get the opportunity, I go to and have a nice retreat there. So how was your experience there? And can you also tell us about so do you have a strong connection with the nature, especially because you belong to a very nature-rich sort of a city?
I wasn't able to go on the trekking with my journalist friends because of an injury of my foot.
Right.
So I was driving up to Khunjarab Pass,
Right.
obviously in a car, and it was all concrete, so there wasn't that much nature going on, but I was able to just film and take pictures. The people in Hunza, they strike me almost as a bit Western. I'm not sure if I can say that on national TV, but I was allowed to shake women's hands,
Yeah.
which is apparently not that common, in Pakistan. And I've seen a couple of people that almost looked like me. They had blonde hair, and especially very, very light blue eyes, and we call them
Caucasian races.
Auge wie ein Bergsee. That means eyes like a mountain lake. And some
Lovely.
people up in Hunza Valley, they have these very eyes.
Lovely.
Yeah, the people who belong to the northern part of our country, they're very Caucasian. They have, I mean, their features resemble Caucasian race, and Fahim belongs to that particular area. You belong to, I believe,
Kohat and
Kohat.
Madan, yes.
Kohat, yes.
That's in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and KPK basically. So if I come to you, Daniel, now we have the Swiss Alps. We have been listening to them since our childhood. They're really, really beautiful, the pristine beauty, everything about them. Was there any difference when you came here as far as the Himalayas were concerned? Because we hear about the Himalayas since our childhood. Again, she has visited that area quite a lot of times. I haven't. But they say it's more rugged, it's more beautiful perhaps in certain amount of ways. But then some Pakistanis have a different opinion regarding the Swiss Alps as well. What's your opinion and perception?
And how do you contrast both of these mountains, and how can we have this conversation in intersection of the climate change and the weather fallacies that are happening? I'm pretty sure because the temperature is rising a lot in Pakistan. We did never experience the sort of heat that we are experiencing right now in Islamabad. You know, mostly it would go 36, 37 degree, and now it's 42, 44. It's intense heat. I don't know about Switzerland.
It's been crazy this year.
Well, I think the one fact is pretty the same here in Switzerland, that our glaciers are melting.
Of course, yes.
Yeah. So you have more glaciers than we have. You have 81, I've learned. And that's one point. But on the other hand, what we see is happening in the Himalayas, Karakoram, or in Hindu Kush, in all those mountain ranges around the world, we see very, very similar things happening. For example, since the climate has changed and temperatures are rising, animals are going up because they don't feel comfortable anymore in the lower ranges because it's too hot. So they will go up, and they will go up till they find the range where it's comfortable again. But this range is constantly increasing upwards. So where does it end? You know? We don't know. We know from mountain ranges in South America that some bird species are already threatened because of that effect. Now we haven't seen that here because we didn't spend enough time. And when we look at the mountains at a given time, it's just like a spotlight for that moment. We should look at the statistics and the long-term measurements of what's going on. But I think mountains in general respond, or the environment responds in a similar way, be it in Pakistan, be it in Switzerland. And the beauty is another aspect. But I think your mountains are too high.
Is it a compliment or not? I am trying to figure that out. Because it is said about the K2 that it grows every year. I think 2 or 3 inches. So that was a very interesting fact that I came. Because we are, because of the paucity of the time, and we are approaching the ending of our segment. So, Mr. Michael, if you would like to dole out some message to our viewers out there, here's your camera. Please go ahead.
Yeah, well, we had an amazing experience here in Pakistan. And me, as a team leader of a tour operator in Switzerland, I'm so happy to promote to our guests future tours to your wonderful country. Please take care of nature in Pakistan, because this is the most valuable thing for tourism, but also for yourself, for daily life, to have clean rivers, to have the glaciers, and take care of the nature here. It's amazing.
Thank you. Now, Sandra, a message from you as well.
This one?
Yeah,
this one. Here's the camera.
Here. Shukriya to all the Pakistani people I was able to meet. Thank you very much for all the unforgettable moments I have been able to make in the past 9 days. And Mom, if you're watching, look at me. I am very well, still alive, and in a talk show.
So that seems that there is a very interesting backstory behind it. Yes. So, Mr. Doris, please go ahead. We would like to explore it, but I think we are really short on time. So if you want to give some message out there, I do believe that you have a very deep, a very observing personality, right?
Oh, no. Yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate it to be here and to realize how big this country is. And I want to send a message to a woman I met here in Upper Hunza Valley. She's the local commissioner. Namila is her name, and she's a really tough and strong woman, and she's really a role model, I think. So if she is watching TV, hi Namila, you make a very good job.
So quickly, Mr. Daniel, please, just one line because really, really short.
Okay, I go very, very short. Thank you very much to everybody I met on the road and who showed me all this hospitality and friendliness. And I'll come back in 10 years and see you again.
Thank you. That's wonderful.
Hopefully.
And we will be again waiting for you and receiving you and having your wonderful opinion about our country, our culture. And thank you all of our worthy guests for being here on our show, for having this wonderful cross-pollination of ideas. And I think the retreat to mountain is always an intersection of the spiritual and the scientific. And in the Quran, it is mentioned that we have created mountains as the pegs for the earth to stay, right? And there's some logic behind it. So with that, we are ending our show. We are saying Allah Hafiz, goodbye, and until next time, it's a goodbye again, and good morning.